Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. US President Joe Biden arrives in the South American nation of Peru to attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. President Biden will also meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the summit on Saturday. North Korean leader orders the mass production of attack drones. Pyongyang says once the production rates are ramped up, North Korea could become a potential armed drone exporter. Toxic smog chokes India's capital New Delhi as air quality levels remain in the severe category. The government orders primary schools to undertake classes online as some doctors urge residents to leave the city. Mali's military junta arrests one of the country's top politicians for criticizing neighboring Burkina Faso's military rulers. The militaries of Mali and Burkina Faso say they will work together to crack down on what they call threats to the state. And tech giant Google says its internet fiber optic cables are under threat in the African continent. The African firm demands protection for the cables from the African Union. Google provides fiber optic internet to at least 39 nations in the continent. Hello and welcome. Our top focus for today is Nigeria, where the West African country is looking to strengthen its diplomatic ties with India. On the invitation of the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to hold his first bilateral visit to the West African region on the 16th and 17th of November. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Nigeria is coming after a gap of 17 years. The last time an Indian Prime Minister visited Nigeria was in 2007. The then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had visited Abuja and elevated the relations between the two countries to the status of strategic partnership. Speaking about the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi, India's Foreign Ministry highlighted about how the diplomatic ties between India and Nigeria have been very cordial.
Both India and Nigeria enjoy strong cordial relationship for a very long time, since 1960, ever since it won independence. Relationship underpinned by shared values of democracy, respect for pluralism, rule of law and diversity. Both the countries are multi-religious, multi-ethnic and multi-linguistic countries.
Now, India's Foreign Ministry said that the visit would include a ceremonial welcome for Prime Minister Modi by President Tinubu, followed by a one-on-one and a delegation-level meeting between the two leaders. The two leaders will also be exchanging 5 memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, in areas including culture, geological survey, the digital public infrastructure, customs, traditional medicine, among others. Now, during his visit to Abuja, Prime Minister Modi will also be interacting with the Indian diaspora in the West African country. India has a strong diasporic presence in Nigeria. There are about 60,000 people of Indian origin living in the country, with Hinduism being a largely common religion among the Indian community. But it is not just the government that is looking forward to hosting Prime Minister Modi. The West African country's citizens are also extending a hearty welcome ahead of the visit. In a video shared by the Indian Embassy in Nigeria, Hindi language lovers have extended a special welcome to the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy.
नगमे खुशियां बिखर रही है, दबे पाँव से कुछ कह रही है, आज के दिन कुछ खास है, पधारे हमारे यहाँ एक खास मेहमान है, खुशियों के साथ उनका स्वागत करते हैं और ये हमारा सौभाग्य है। भारत के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नाइजीरिया के आने पर हम आपका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं एवं अभिनंदन करते हैं।
Now, among African nations, Nigeria is the second largest trading partner of India. The bilateral trade between the two countries has reached close to $15 billion. And a significant part of this trade is coming from oil imports from Nigeria into India. Indian companies also have a strong presence in West African country. Now, these companies, which are about 200 in number, have cumulatively invested $27 billion in Nigeria, and they are the second largest employment provider in the country. Additionally, India has also offered close to $400 million of assistance to Nigeria, some of which has been used in developing the power sector in the West African country. But the relationship is not just economic. In terms of defense, India has helped Nigeria to establish several of its military institutions, particularly the National Defense Academy and the National War College in Nigeria. The two countries also hold a strategic and counterterrorism dialogue to identify areas of cooperation to fight terrorism. Nigeria has also shown its interest in procuring India's light combat aircraft and helicopter. Beyond the economic and military partnerships, India and Nigeria's cooperation has spanned across different sectors, such as education, renewable energy, pharmaceutical, power, and infrastructure development. Now, Prime Minister Modi's visit is coming amid a personal crisis for President Tinubu at home. Tinubu has been criticized for his economic policies that has created a cost of living crisis for Nigerians. In such a scenario, laying a red carpet for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and strengthening cooperation between the two democratic countries might just boost President Bola Tinubu's image in the country. Now, to discuss more on this, we have with us Dr. Ambrose Igboke, an international affairs analyst from Enugu in Nigeria. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, Alyson. It's good to be here.
Great to speak with you, Doctor. Now, what are the key areas of cooperation and the agreements that are expected to be the focus of discussions between Prime Minister Modi and President Tinubu, given the significance of this visit after 17 long years?
It's very worrisome that for 17 years, an Indian Prime Minister has not visited Nigeria. Because India and Nigeria have a very strong relationship, as you have said earlier. As far back as 1958, India already have a diplomatic missions with Nigeria. Remember that India has a common history with Nigeria, being the colonial masters were the same Britain, the same period of time we got our independence. We are members of the Commonwealth. And I remember that India has always cooperated with Nigeria in terms of manpower development. In the 70s and 80s, I remember as a child growing up in the Delta Steel Company in Alaja in Warri, I had a lot of Indian neighbors, Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Sanguta, Mr. Mukherjee. All of them were engineers that came from India for exchange program with my uncle, who I'm living with, who is also an engineer. I remember also that they had what they called MECON, Metallurgical Engineering Consultants of Nigeria, that were exchanging visits with consultants in Nigeria and also consultants in India. So there was a lot of cooperation between them. I remember the Russians, the Indians, were the ones that helped to develop the steel plant in Nigeria. So over the years also, there were some times we had a lot of Indian lecturers in Nigerian universities. A lot of them were here teaching all sorts of subjects in the university, and also Nigerians going over there for exchange programs. So relationship has been deep. And I don't know what happened in the last 17 years. is something that should not have happened. But I'm glad that President Tinubu is bringing back that relationship. Right. We have a lot of Indians here in Nigeria that are doing businesses all over the country, bringing up industries, factories, and all. So we have a very deep connection with India in Nigeria.
Right. Absolutely. And how could this visit impact the economic and trade relationship between India and Nigeria, particularly in sectors like energy, technology, and infrastructure? You have touched on some of that.
Yeah, India has accelerated more than Nigeria. Nigeria is still in the backwaters of economic development and technological development. We are almost at the same pace with India in the 70s and 80s. Something happened to Nigeria in the 90s, and we went backwards. So while India has been able to come out from a lot of its poverty by developing its human resources, especially in the area of ICT development and digitization, Nigerians are also talented like the Indians, but the Nigerian government over the years have refused to develop the Nigerian manpower. So when it comes to infrastructure like energy, Nigeria has a lot to learn. When it comes to ICT, Nigeria has a lot to learn from India. When we come to pharmaceuticals, while India has developed their own traditional medicine, Nigeria rather condemns its own. So we have a lot to also learn from India. But also, Nigeria should also be careful because most of the bilateral relationships Nigeria signed in the past have always favored the other country and not Nigeria. So this challenge should be mutually beneficial for both countries so that we can grow while India is also trying to support us.
And what does Prime Minister Modi's visit signal about India's broader foreign policy strategy in Africa? And how might this affect Nigeria's geopolitical partnerships and regional influence?
Well, it's for the good of Nigeria to partner with India. India has been respectfully, partnering with Nigeria. Unlike some of the partnerships we get from the West, which behaves as if it is helping the country, meanwhile it's exploiting it. I think India comes with a mutually respected standpoint with Nigeria, and I think Nigeria should dig deep to see how they can benefit more from trading with India. Apart from oil, outside the crude oil, we have a lot to also trade with India. Human resources need to be developed further. Let me even tell you, a lot of Nigerians, when we cannot solve our medical problems here, what of the time, where do we go to? We go to India for medical assistance. So apart from these areas, I think also the President Tinubu should be looking at how to develop our health sector using the India expertise so that we also can have, we can reduce medical tourism and, deepen our own health care system also.
Yeah. Great to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time and for being with us on First Post Africa.
Thank you very much, Alyson, for having me.
Shifting our attention toward the ongoing election season across the world, the next country that is heading to the polls is the West African country of Senegal. Senegal, which is the westernmost African country located on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, is holding legislative elections to its National Assembly on Sunday. The elections, which are coming just 8 months after the presidential elections, would determine whether the country's newly elected president, Bassirou Faye, and his Prime Minister, Ousmane Sonko, are able to gain control over the National Assembly and to push through their agenda for reforms. The legislative elections are being held for Senegal's unicameral National Assembly, where 165 seats are up for grabs for a period of 5 years. More than 7 million registered voters will have the chance to vote for their preferred candidate. And voters get an opportunity to choose between 41 registered parties or other entities. The projections of the new parliament are expected to be available from Monday morning. These legislative elections are not being held on completion of the term of the National Assembly. They are snap elections, or polls that have been called earlier than scheduled. Now, President Faye and Prime Minister Sonko swept to victory in March on a ticket of economic transformation, social justice, fighting corruption, and promising to diversify political and economic partnerships. But the opposition-controlled National Assembly hampered the government's activities during President Faye's first months. pushing him to dissolve the National Assembly in September.
By the powers vested in me by Article 87 of the Constitution, and after consulting the Constitutional Council on the right date, the Prime Minister and the President of the National Assembly on the advisability, I have dissolved the National Assembly. The date of the legislative elections is thus set for Sunday, November 17, 2024.
Now, there are several major parties and key players that are taking part in these legislative elections. First is the highly influential Prime Minister Usmane Sonko, who is the lead candidate for the ruling PASTEF party. He is known for his fiery rhetoric. Then comes the former President Macky Sall, who led the country from 2012 to 2024, but stepped aside in April of this year after triggering one of the worst crises in decades with a last-minute postponement of the presidential elections. He leads the Taku Walu Senegal coalition. The next candidate contesting elections is Amadou Ba, a former Prime Minister and a runner-up in March's presidential election. He heads the Jam Ak Njarin coalition. And finally is the fourth candidate, Barthélemy Dias, and he is the former Sonko ally and current mayor of Senegal's capital city of Dakar. He is leading the Samsa Kadu coalition. But some of the top issues that voters are focusing on these elections include the rising cost of living and growing unemployment in the country, in addition to increasing migration, corruption, and gender inequality. Surging inflation has crippled the spending power of the Senegalese, some of whom are also finding it difficult to get work, while scores of people continue to risk their lives every month in a bid to reach Europe by boat.
Africa is tough, especially here in Senegal. Young people don't work. The other governments that came before used to do whatever they wanted. If you look, all the young people in the street spend their day drinking tea. Afterwards, in the evening, they go to bed.
Over 60% of young people do not work. That's another problem that needs to be solved. I know that the state can't do everything, but the state could still have supported these young people to prevent them from leaving to immigrate.
However, campaigns for these snap elections have been marred by clashes between supporters of the governing PASTEF party and the opposition backers. Now, the clashes have taken place in various cities, including the capital of Dakar, the northern city of St. Louis, and the central town of Kongful.
They had thugs with them, people with guns. When we saw all the weapons they had out, it was as if they were going to war. We can't accept that. I mean, the caravans are a time for joy and celebration.
Prime Minister Sonko earlier this week also urged the supporters of his party to take revenge for the alleged violence against them during the campaign process for the elections. Now, reports suggest that the day after campaigning began, the Dakar headquarters of an opposition party was also attacked, with vehicles being targeted and windows being smashed. But it is not just the campaign violence that has been in the limelight across the West African country. Senegal has also suffered severe floods this year that have swept away livelihoods of a population largely dependent on agriculture. Several Senegalese people are expecting the government to support them and not abandon them post the elections. But who has the chances of winning these legislative elections? Now, political experts believe that Senegalese voters have historically confirmed their presidential choice during parliamentary elections. They note that the opposition is scattered, with several choices that the voters have to make.
Senegalese people know how to vote. And in general, it is rare that they elect a president of the republic and strip him of the means which allows him to carry out his project.
But with stakes getting high in the elections, fears have emerged of fresh violence and unrest after a period of calm. And only time will tell whether President Faye is able to win a majority in the National Assembly or not. And now we take you to Morocco. For generations, the Amazigh tribeswomen have proudly worn their culture on their faces. Literally. These women have adorned their chins with traditional tattoos, each design as unique as the woman who wears it. But this isn't your average tattoo parlor experience. The process starts with the skin being pricked by a needle until the blood flows, and then a special chewed green herb is applied to seal the deal. Painful? Absolutely. But for these women, it's worth it. However, the ink and tradition of these generational tattoos are now fading. Here are the details.
In a world where self-expression is celebrated, tattoos have long been a powerful symbol of personal identity, creativity and emotion. Whether commemorating a personal achievement, marking a loss, or embracing tradition, tattoos offer a unique way to narrate one's life story. But while modern tattoos often carry personal significance, for some cultures, these markings are much more than just skin deep. They are a sacred tradition passed down through generations. One such enduring tradition belongs to the Amazigh tribeswomen of Morocco, who have been adorning their faces with intricate chin tattoos for centuries. These tattoos are not mere decoration. They carry profound meaning.
When I was 6, we were told that henna tattoos were pretty adornments, especially when we went to the Ahaides, a local performance. That's why they tattooed our faces.
From a young age, Amazigh women are taught that tattoos enhance their beauty, a form of adornment that makes their faces more captivating. But these designs also carry deeper significance, often representing tribal identity, the wearer's origin, or serving as a form of protection. The process of receiving these tattoos is both painstaking and symbolic.
We would use charcoal to draw the designs on our faces. Then a woman would prick the drawing with a needle until blood came out. Then the wound was cleaned daily with a chewed green herb until the tattoo was formed.
A ritual that carries its own weight in tradition and endurance.
An expert woman came to tattoo our faces with a needle. We little girls couldn't hold back our tears during this painful process. Meanwhile, each mother hugged and kissed her daughter, trying to console her until the tattoo was complete. It remains a tradition that our ancestors passed down to us.
These tattoos are not confined to the chin alone. Some women choose to tattoo intimate areas of their bodies as a wedding gift for their partners, a personal expression of love and commitment. Each design, carefully chosen, is imbued with symbolism. A circle might represent the universe and beauty, while suns and moons are tied to local religious beliefs, hence reflecting the spiritual importance of these markings.
On the other hand, some tattoo designs reflect the identity of a tribe, like the Berber Hendira worn by women, which is unique to each tribe. Tattoos are distinguished by their symbols and shapes, expressing membership of a specific community and their own identity.
Yet, despite their rich history, these tattoos are slowly fading from practice. One of the key reasons for this decline is the changing religious views in the region. For many, tattooing and other forms of body modification are now seen as forbidden by their faith. In fact, some extremists have gone so far as to describe tattoos as the devil's book, claiming that they will be the first part of the body to burn in the afterlife. Fearing spiritual repercussions, some women have gone as far as to remove their tattoos later in life. While the tradition of the Amazigh tattoos is vanishing, its legacy endures in the stories, the symbols, and the faces of the women who wore them with pride. These tattoos were once a testament to beauty, identity, and protection, marking a woman's place in the world. And while the ink may fade, the cultural significance remains, a reminder of a time when these symbols carried the weight of generations.
Now, if you are someone who is an admirer of love stories, our next report is for you. A heartwarming tale from a small town in South Africa is getting worldwide acclaim. The movie Greytown Girl is based on true events and set in the apartheid era. It centers around an impaired Indian woman who falls in love with an American man after being pen pals for years. It touches upon several sensitive issues like oppression and social stigma. I got the chance to talk to the writer and producer of the movie, as well as the lead actor. Here's our special report. Greytown, a picturesque town in South Africa, is known for its scenic beauty, culture, and historical significance. Recently, it's gaining attention for a beautiful story that is being portrayed on the silver screen. It's called Greytown Girl, a movie which was released in September this year. Critics have lauded it as a poetic piece about love, parenting, and heritage.
Love will find you.
Co-produced by Rani Sitaraman of East Coast Media and directed by Oscar-nominated Daryl Ruitt, the movie is a blend of love, culture, and history, touching several key themes and breaking stereotypes.
If she was white, she would have been diagnosed with this.
Set in the apartheid era of the 1960s in South Africa, it's a true story centered around an Indian woman named Meena, who is born with an impairment that affects her walk. As a woman of color, she faces challenges in treatment, reflecting the further marginalization of impaired people within Black and Indian communities during the time. Despite the odds, Meena bravely created her life. She learned how to read from glossy magazines and discovered the concept of pen pals, which gave her the opportunity to write to anyone in the world. Excited, Meena wrote to friends across the globe, but just one of them wrote her back, all the way from the United States of America. Meena's American pen pal, Eddie Gibson, was deeply moved by her words. The two continued romance through letter writing for not days or months, but a whole 25 years. Meena was teased by the society for her choice, but she stood firm against the tides and built her own destiny.
Who are you writing to anyway?
I'm trying to find a pen pal.
Oh.
Talking to Firstpost, Rani Sitaraman, the writer and producer of the story, highlighted the inspiration and themes touched on in the story.
Because it was a time during oppression in South Africa, and we had to reflect that, even though it is the world of the story. The actual story is a romance. It's a beautiful romance of pure, unconditional love that transcends borders, that transcends the political system, and that transcends the physical.
A major appealing fact behind the story is that the couple that inspired the story is real and still alive. Playing the real-life characters in such an emotive story was not easy. The protagonist, played by Sanam Sitaraman, who is also the daughter of the film producer, shared her experience of portraying the character.
So incredible about this story is that she is, a real person, a real woman. And as much as, this is a story, about the strong woman overcoming obstacles, she really has a gentle, quiet strength about her. And so I wanted to really capture that.
While the film touches upon some of the most sensitive themes like disability, oppression, love, and societal stigma, producer Sitaraman has also mingled the cultural representation beautifully.
I made those on Timori. Close your mouth and eat.
There was a special scene in the movie that was actually shot here, and this was one of the most glorious places to shoot. It's got such a beautiful energy because the energy of the people of the region are resonant here. You can feel the love, you can feel the spirituality here.
Greytown Girl is an effort to address social, ethical, and political issues through the art of cinema. For the filmmakers, it is an opportunity for South Asians who have been stereotyped for too long on the world cinema. Greytown Girl is a story with local context, but is resonating with people across the world, taking us back to history It is breathing fresh life into modern cinema. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and goodbye.